Peter, very frankly, when I run for office, and from the first time I ever ran, I put down goals that I would like to reach, and for my very first time in office, I put down goals, and I'm very pleased that some of those have been reached. And you know, I go back a few years and we had an open landfill that was first burning trash, and then we covered. I'm very pleased we have a closed landfill. I'm very pleased we have a middle school. I'm extremely proud of the police station. I'm extremely proud of a police chief that I think is second to none that I helped appoint, a human resource office that came to fruition after years of looking at things that weren't going right, that's gone extremely well and is one of only 2 in the state that's modeled for both school and government side. And when you look to the future, I think you're always seeing what needs to be done. I think Marge Kraskouskas is available to the citizens when they have concerns. I think she's a leader. I think she's a person who tries to bring about consensus building, and she's a decision maker.
She was born and raised in Gardner, just like I was. And at the beginning, in the summer, and there were a lot of Polish people, a lot of French people in Gardner, and there was at that time every Sunday a Polish picnic, and it was down on a pond, and there was a beach, and there were volleyball games, and everything was outside. It was very pleasant, and there was dancing, the polkas in the hall and all of that stuff, and I met her there. I thought she was an attractive girl. She could carry on a good conversation, and she had pleasing manners. We got married about 2 years after we had met, and we were married for 59 years.
I'm number one, and I can tell you that my parents, I don't think I got off on the right foot with them on a couple of occasions, because my parents, I always remember this, they gave me a lot of grief. They always kept reminding me, geez, I had day and night mixed up. But when I was going to be born, there was a couple of false alarms. So they were going to a Christmas party. Obviously they're young, and they're out and about. And she's telling my dad, I think it's today. I think it's today. So what happens, they have to leave the party, they end up in the hospital, and false labor. So they said, oh, okay. They go back. What happens a few days later, it's New Year's Eve. They go out again, and of course my mom has false labor again. They end up in the hospital, and it took a few more days. I was born January 7th, and so they've always beat me up that I affected their social life.
We got down to North Attleboro because I had gotten a job with the New England Home for Little Wanderers to run a special education program for them. And so we had to get a house somewhere in that area. And she had been down several times, not being able to find one. And then she just stopped in a bar that was open or a diner in Plainville, and talked to a fellow, and he introduced her to a man who owned a house up on High Street. She went up and took a look at it, and she said, yeah, we'll rent it.
I was followed by 5 sisters. After those 5 sisters, there were 3 brothers. And so Carolyn was kind of stuck behind them. And of course, I grew up with 5 sisters, so I thought I played football, but I might have did some jump rope too, you know.
So my brothers all played football, all of them. And then there was a point where one brother was on varsity, one brother was on JV, but one brother was still playing down in middle school. And I remember that like there was this loop we had to do, and we were in this small little car, and my mother would make this loop. And I remember her yelling at my brother to get in the car one day, and she's screaming, and she's super funny, and she's like yelling like a joke behind a serious thing, like, get your pads, you're gonna whack your head, come on. And she like shoved us all. You gotta remember, there's 5 of us, and it's a bug, it's a tiny little bug, and she shoves all of us in this car. And my brother just starts complaining because it's uncomfortable. Like, let's be real. Like, there's like 5 or 6 of us in here. We're like, I'm on somebody's lap. And my mother just start singing Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes, like as loud as she can, like. And next thing you know, we're all singing and we're all laughing, and I would tell you, like, that was my mom, like let's go, let's go, let's go. I got 10 of you. And I don't think that's who she was, but it's who she had to become to run 10 children. But who she was that person, like, singing in the car.
Growing up, we went on many vacations. My mom and dad, my mom was an explorer. She always mapped something out. So long story short, we end up in traveling west. I think we were trying to get to California. We ended up getting to Colorado. And then we slowly started to make our way back. We stopped in Michigan to visit some friends that they had. And we get in the car, and we make it to New York, and overnight, our dog had puppies. Now, I think there were 6 of us at the time, and our dog had 9 puppies. So here we are, and of course, what do you think happens? My sister complains that she left a teddy bear in Michigan. And my mom and dad are going back and forth because us kids, we want to get home. We got puppies, and we're all crammed in the station wagon. But my mom, knowing how important that was for my sister to have her teddy bear, we drove back to Michigan to get that teddy bear. So that kind of encapsulates, my mom's love and caring for each of us.
She expected a lot. She wanted you to achieve 100%. And she never lowered her standard. That would be something else I would say about my mother. Like, even amongst her children, she never lowered her standard.
She wanted you to be polite. She wanted you to be smart. She wanted you to stay in school, and basically being a good student, being a good person, being caring, being charitable, and being nice. Just do a nice thing today. And stop complaining.
I would say that what she did was she maintained traditional values. Normally, we may sit down to eat lunch, always sitting together as a family, saying grace at going to church, going through all the sacraments for all the kids, and all of those things that you need to do to try to develop people who have a commitment and understanding of life in the society.
My household was loud, and it was gregarious, and it was movement. I mean, some days it started at 5 a.m. There were days it didn't until midnight. How did my mom spin the plates? My mother woke us up. You were expected to get up. I mean, nobody was handing us a toothbrush. So like those expectations were given to you very young, to be able to maintain yourself, put your laundry away, do your sheets, like that type of stuff. And then in that way, my mother went off to work, and she had to, like, she had 10 children. They needed a dual income.
She started working at the YMCA as a part-time job, two 4 hours a week typing, and there were different things that came along. She was willing to do it. I think the big thing that happened was they did not have a human resource director, and so Steve Clay, who was the director at that time, talked to her, and she said yes, she was willing to do it. She went back, she took courses on human resource, and as each issue came up, she researched it. She became well versed in it, and but she also had a commitment to people, and she looked out for, as a human resource director, for many people in the YMCA, and has helped a lot of people working in the YMCA.
And then my mother didn't want to leave her children behind, so she worked for the YMCA, and that was a strategic decision on her part, because I don't know if you know this, but she worked at Sturdy Memorial Hospital for quite a few years, and she worked at night. She went into work at 10 o'clock and worked till 5 a.m. And the reason she did that is she checked in the crazies, the people into the Sturdy Memorial ward, is because she was home with us, and it was a priority to her. And so she never took a job unless she could bring us with her, if that makes sense. And so part of the reason she worked for the Y was because childcare. The kid could be in the office and nobody was going to complain because it's the YMCA.
And her passion at the Y was basically was just encapsulated who she was. I just think that, you know, like I said, the outreach, it helped the people she worked with. It helped the people that used the Y in all facets. It was basically to improve the lives of others. Whether it was, I can remember a family came into the Y and they were out of money. And they were trying to figure out how to get the money. Ed wasn't around. And my mother said, we can't keep him standing out there. So my mother, you know, had opened her pocketbook and gave them the $150 that they needed for that Christmas season to move forward. And, you know, the Y, even in a bigger capsule, you know, does a lot more with the money. But just for that special need that day is a testament to the model of the Y and the way my mom, you know, lived the model of the Y.
There were a lot of things over the years that, quite frankly, only Marge and I would know had happened with a staff member, you know, going through something personally with their family. And, you know, Marge would always come to me. If she found out about it first, she'd come to me. I'd go to her if I learned of something. And it was always about Marge to say, you know, what are we going to do? How are we going to take care of this person? And again, most times nobody ever knew what we did, but that was Marge. We came up with this idea of wanting to do something, you know, when Marge was still here. So we surprised her with announcing that, you know, at our staff recognition luncheon, which was one of Marge's favorite events every year. All of our staff, 10 years or more, coming together. And we thought, what better way to keep Marge's legacy alive for future generations than to create this award recognizing somebody at the Y with what we proudly called then and still call now the Marge Kraskouskas Legacy of Caring Award, because that's what she left behind, a legacy of caring. And you know, I'll never forget, you know, Marge was very rarely at a loss for words. She was at a loss for words that day and was deeply touched.
She was very proud that people recognized what she had done and how many people she helped, and she was just very proud to have that award.
I went to the League of Women Voter meeting. They had an announcement or an article in the paper about welcoming people to the League, and it was billed as a new member if you were wanted to join. So I thought, this sounds intriguing, and I felt at that point I was home with the kids all the time, and I thought I needed a little something outside of the house. So I went to the meeting. I was impressed with the women that were there and what they talked about. So I remember, I think it was after we kind of broke for refreshments and things, I went up to Marge and said, oh, I'm so happy to meet you because I've been reading about you in the paper. And she had been taking on the issue of polluted water from Cumberland Farms, which had a big dairy farm on 120 and a big herd of cows. And so she had gone to a meeting in town, I think with the Board of Health, and brought a jar of dirty water. So there was a picture in the paper of her holding up this jar of dirty water. So I had been kind of following what she was writing with letters to the editor and going to meetings. So when I went to this League of Women Voters meeting, I said, aha, that's the woman that's been writing the letters.
The League of Women Voters was kind of established, and I was on the forefront of that. Not that I might have fully understood, but you could see the leadership being established, because many of those events ended up being in our home initially. You know, up and down Church Street. You know, they burned the tree. They had raucous parties, and you know, so I could kind of see that. Oh, wait a minute, something's forming here. So you could kind of see that she was going to kind of do more than just be a mom.
The league was very active in getting involved in the town politics and going to meetings, and so you get to know someone really well, you know. And then we were very much resented by, because at that time it was mostly all men, obviously, you know. I mean, there were a few women. I think the town clerk was a woman at that time, but we were resented because we were questioning things. There was some sarcastic remarks made, you know, behind the scenes that we heard about. But I think eventually we became accepted. But there was some people in town who thought we were going too far. And we tried not to take it personally. I mean, you hear politicians say, well, you just can't, you have to have a thick skin, you can't take things personally, which is hard to do, because we weren't out to hurt anyone. We wanted just to have a better town government. We wanted an open town government. So, I mean, we'd talk about it, but we would just say, we're not going to let it stop us. And sometimes Marge would just laugh about it.
We're in Gardner now. My mother was the first one to be on the city council, and she was on the council for 6 or 8 years, and they would talk about that. But now when she was in North Attleboro, there was Sally Patch, there was Lynn Gollin, and other people who she talked to who were very interested in government. They got involved with departments that were smaller, but they got a good background. And then finally, she felt that she could run for selectman, and she did.
We all wanted her to certainly run for office and certainly run as a selectman.
I had no reservations. I mean, I think people should do what they can do, and I know that her commitment, and I knew that she had the knowledge. And at that time, our children were getting older. I encouraged her.
One of the themes that she ran on when she first ran for selectman was that Marge does her homework. And she did. I mean, she would have binders, you know, full of information. And she knew what she was talking about. And I think that's what people really admired about her, is you might not like what she said, but she could back it up. And I think that's important.
You couldn't snow anything over on Marge. She did her homework, always did her homework, and would press in a very professional way to make sure she got all the information that she did.
Marge Kraskouskas was a hard-working individual. She cared very much about the residents of North Attleboro. The one thing I will say is she was not afraid to ask the tough questions, but she never meant it in a spiteful way.
We very often referred to Marge as the mother of the board. She would not allow a member of the board to be there without a coat and tie. She would get very upset with Jay Moynihan if he came down from his office for the meeting without a coat on. She was a stickler to detail.
Well, she looked for allies that were in the town, and she would try to develop a base of people who were supportive. I don't think I ever saw a project that she went out solely on her own without having first talked to other people and saw that it was feasible, and then went forward on it.
Marge never, to me anyhow, never gave the impression she had an agenda. She let the people set the agenda. She let what the issue was in the front of the town and the Board of Selectmen specifically as to what the agenda was.
And I know one of the hopes she had was that women would continue to be very involved in town politics and continue to run for office and higher office if that's what they so desired. So that's another part of her legacy.
She took pride in a lot of things. Cable television, North TV. She was very, very much committed to that, and obviously she served on the board of directors after she got off the board of selectmen, but she was committed to that. I think she saw that as a way to increase the openness of government and the ability of people to follow what's going on, and that was important to her.
For years, North Attleboro had local channels that were operated by the cable companies, dedicated employees. But when Comcast finally wanted to wash their hands of, maintaining those channels, Marge saw that as an opportunity. And as part of the negotiating team with Comcast, made sure North Attleboro residents had the best cable access corporation possible.
Marge really, as a member of what was then the Selectmen's negotiating team with cable, really did her research, as she always did, and drove a hard bargain with them for the town to get what I know as the highest percentage in this area. I think it's 4.5%. towards what has become North TV.
She pushed for the capital money that was needed. She pushed for the operating money that was needed.
So the Board of Selectmen had a vision for a new enterprise for local cable in North Attleboro. And so the Selectmen identified me as one of 3 people who would become incorporators of a new PEG access cable operation in North Attleboro, along with Bob Cody and Patty Lush. So I got to know Marge in that capacity, and she was still a select person. We always, from the very beginning, had a selectman liaison to the board of directors of North TV. But I pretty much believe that Marge's real involvement in what we named North TV, North Attleboro Community Television, really sped up when she left the Board of Selectmen and joined the North TV board.
After the contract was settled, and when she was no longer a member of the Board of Selectmen, she joined the North TV board, and so she started something and then ended something. That was typical of Marge.
I came up here like 5 years before my wife did. And she had a term on the board, and she was going to fulfill the board. She was very friendly with Sherry Rhino and other people of the board. And there were issues that were there that she was committed to, and she was going to stay committed till her term came to an end.
How did she balance, being a wife, a mother, a grandmother, HR vice president at the Y? Oh yeah, member of the Board of Selectmen in North Attleboro. It was amazing.
She would come in from work. She would spin so fast through that kitchen. And I mean, she would go to the bathroom, make her own dinner, put the dinner in the oven, tell me when the dinner had to be out, tell me when my father was coming home, give me a kiss on the cheek, a kiss on the top of the head. She didn't kiss the cheek. And she would spin out, and she'd be going off to the selectmen's board. And then she would come home, and it would be like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. I don't know. I don't really know. She would check my homework. She would tell me to go to bed. And then, I don't know, my mother probably stayed up till midnight every day. That's how she got everything done.
I mean, she never ceased to amaze me. She had so much energy and so much interest in what was going on around her and in the town.
I can remember at one time we actually joked that the woman in the town seal was fashioned after Marge Kraskouskas. She had that much of a effect on the government.
Every time she is doing things, she really gets committed to it, and she goes beyond what is required, regardless what the task is. And among other attributes she has. But throughout her life, she's been very committed.
I would ask her sometimes, Marge, I don't get it. How do you do all this? Why do you do all this? And she'd always give the same answer, because I need to.
I remember when I was getting older, I would be like, how am I going to do all this? And my mother would just go, you just do it. As an adult with my own 2 children, I'm like, you do just do it. You wake up, you do what you can, and at the end of the day, you reflect on what you didn't do, and you try to do more tomorrow. And my mother really went about that in like probably one of the calmest attitudes of any human I've ever known.
She was just somebody that, you know, touched all of us so deeply. And, you know, we'll never forget her. We never forget the lessons. We'll talk about, we'll be in a meeting and something will come up and we'll just start laughing. And a group of us will know right away. It was something either Marge was passionate about, something Marge had said or done before. And, you know, she just had a way of, you know, she could laugh at herself too. And she was pretty good at poking us a little bit too. And we knew how to poke her. But we had a lot of fun together and, you know, worked hard, did some great things together. But, you know, I'd always be grateful for the, you know, for the support, the counsel she gave me in her role as a colleague, but I'm even more grateful for, you know, what I've learned from her and what I've taken from her in terms of having her as a friend for all those years.
Her lasting legacy at North TV is the fact that you never rest on your laurels. It was the same when I worked with Marge at the Hockomock Area YMCA, and one of the reasons that Y has been so successful is they set a goal, they accomplish it, they're immediately looking at the next goal. And she brought that to the North TV board. And you know, we finish election coverage, which is a huge undertaking for us. No one covers elections like North TV. We don't then just relax for the next 2 or 3 months. We're moving on to the next big project. And I think we have Marge Kraskouskas to thank for that.
The legacy she has in North Attleboro between the League of Women Voters, her time on the Board of Selectmen, her time at the Hockomock Area Y. I mean, as HR director became vice president for HR. What a lasting legacy she's left.
And I've always kind of joked with my mom that raising 10 wasn't enough. So she had to raise the town too.
I think the keys to success for me, I believed in doing your homework. You also have got to listen to every point of view, even when it's not your point of view. And you've got to be able to say, well, this is what I believe and this is why. You've always got to be able to do that. And I think the real key is you've got to be willing to listen to all points of view and understand all points of view. And that's hard, and it gets harder and harder as you go along. But you've always got to be thinking, I think, past today, because what you do today impacts tomorrow.